Okay, welcome everyone to another episode of Three Markets, the prediction market traders podcast. Matt, how are you doing?
Doing great, especially after this weekend. Some great sports games, which I might talk
Some
about in this
great
episode.
sports games. Yeah,
Yeah.
let's actually start there with the sports things. I have yesterday's Wall Street Journal, bro, the paper
Ooh.
copy. And right below the fold, we have Kalshi on the front page of the Wall Street Journal,
No
right? The
way.
article is Prediction Market Kalshi bets big on NFL. And this is actually a article that's pretty sports focused. Here, I'll pull up the digital version of this. They actually changed the headline, funny enough. So, did you see that this was a story?
I did not know.
Yeah, it's a big deal, I think, for Kalshi. I mean, Kalshi really came out of nowhere, didn't they? And here they are, front page of the Wall Street Journal, inside of just a short period of time. But the article focuses on, Kalshi as a prediction market for sports, I think. I mean, a lot of the big takeaways, Kalshi's monthly trading volume, for instance, I mean, this just demonstrates the sheer percentage of their volume that is sports volume. And I saw a few takes on Twitter that are kind of like, so is Kalshi a prediction market or is Kalshi, a new kind of sports book?
Mhm.
Um,
Yeah,
any
we're
thoughts on
just
that?
no. That's pretty interesting. Yeah, because the first thing I thought of when you shared this was they haven't had to run obnoxious ads for this, like, and they're getting all this volume, which is actually pretty impressive. Um, and the at least to the specific point that you had around are they a prediction market or it's sports book, maybe part of the strategy there is like we get folks in who are predicting familiar events like sports, and they'll get to see on the recommendations or sidebar like, oh, I could actually engage in other markets that relate to politics and stuff. It does make me a little bit, I don't want to say concerned, but curious about like the separation between the two, or like how someone might come in and want to predict, sorry, what in most, like, I guess a common language people would say like, oh, I just want to go bet on the game. um and I think that approach is, I guess, kind of the same with prediction markets. I need to think about this a little bit more. I don't really have a point, just other than it's like interesting to think about sports books. Kind of leans in on the fact that like, oh, you should like bet on your favorite game, bet on your favorite players, have fun, it's entertaining. And then prediction markets, I think a lot of its origins come from like, will some like major event happen in the world, and like try to get the wisdom of the crowd. So yeah, I don't really know what my point is, other than it's interesting how folks come in.
I agree. I agree. Like when I see this stat, here, let me share this tweet that's related. It just kind of makes me think that. See if I've got the right one here. Da-da-da-da. Here's the takeaway from the Wall Street Journal article. Sports contracts accounted for 98% of Kalshi's volume over the weekend and 90% of the platform's total volume year to date.
Wow.
Obviously, if you go back farther than that, you get into the election, and the election we know are huge volume markets. But we've talked before on the pod about the advantages that prediction markets have over traditional sports books, right? Oh shit, I'm gonna have to throw on the old do not disturb here. Um, We've talked before about the advantages that prediction markets have over traditional sports books, but and there are advantages. I think we see this as a net innovation for sports bettors. But I would like to think that prediction markets are more than just that. You know what I mean? I mean, I think I'm personally more enticed by the ability to aggregate the wisdom of the crowds around geopolitical and political events, or just kind of current events or economic events. Not just sports betting, for which I think there is less value in trying to find some crowd signal. There's certainly entertainment value, and it seems like, at least for Kalshi, they are finding product market fit amongst sports bettors, right? And I don't know if you saw this news that just dropped this week as well. Busy week for prediction markets, as always. Is that Kalshi has introduced a parlay functionality, right? So here, I'll show you that quickly. The new combo experience on Kalshi lets you build your own market for the NFL games tonight. And you can see at Nostroa's screen grab here, building out an actual parlay, and they're going to purchase the entire parlay as one trade, right? So when I first see this, like, my assumption is that the way this works is that you are basically, building a multi-leg strategy and then purchasing contracts for all of them, and it's kind of like fill or kill. If you can't get one of the legs, then it's not going to fill. But it's of course just built on the individual prop bet markets.
This is so like who's. I mean, there has to be like a market maker for this, right? Like who are
Yeah, so that was
who's
my
providing
first read
liquidity?
on it. And then I saw this tweet where Publius Val writes, new Kalshi parlays with some important notes. Welcoming any correction. This is a one-sided market. You can't buy no shares. This is not peer-to-peer. Kalshi is the house. This is not a prediction market. This is just gambling. Kalshi is closer to DraftKings than Polymarket. I mean, this is a somewhat disparaging take on the parlay functionality. But maybe you can better explain to me, like, why is this not peer-to-peer?
Well, I mean, you for each of the legs, you'd have to have not only someone else take the other side, but I also think that with parlays and sports books, they do some adjustments to the actual odds and payouts, like as you're adding on more events. I guess in this case, it's additive, and like, or at least within an order book, and maybe not multiplied in some way. Like I do think there are like different payouts if it's like a single game parlay versus like you're parlaying across multiple sports. Versus and
Can you explain how a parlay works?
yeah, sure. So when you in the context of sports, if you are betting on a game, and let's say you say, okay, I want Oregon to win, or I think that Oregon's going to win this game. But you also think that other events are going to take place as well. Like you think that collectively both teams will score under a certain amount of points, or the spread of the game, or you're betting the spread on one of the teams. So you can bet on all of these bets individually, or you can combine them into one larger bet. And that larger bet will only pay out if all conditions are satisfied. If one of them misses, then you lose the entire parlay. But if you bet on these individually, then obviously like one could lose, the other can win, and they're kind of independent of each other. And I think what's enticing for a lot of people in sports books, and I need to fact check myself on this after, but like I'm pretty sure that the sports book themselves adds a bit more juice to the actual odds when you do a parlay, as an incentive to take that bet, because I think it's like an 80-20 rule with like in terms of profits that sportsbooks makes with parlays versus straight bets. A lot of their promotional material and a lot of their like offers that they have are for parlays. So when it's Monday Night Football, like yesterday, I like opened my DraftKings app and it said like, oh, if you like take all these parlays, like we'll give you an extra like bonus odds like for it. So I'm not sure how Kalshi is going to be able to compete within this. I guess if Kalshi is the house, then they can offer like certain odds. But I kind of agree with this take that like this is getting pretty close to DraftKings territory.
So if a user is stringing together events and the entire parlay has to hit, right? You can't win in a single bet if you've structured it as a parlay. Is the right way to think about the probability that you're effectively multiplying the probability of each event together?
Yeah, I would think so. I said that with confidence, but I need to like think about that. But yeah,
I think
because
that's
if
right.
yeah, because they aren't they're independent events, but they're dependent on each other for the payout to take place. So yeah, like you would have to have all of them hit uh, in order to get that payout, which can be enticing because like you could say, oh, if I bet like $1 or $5, then people who are might get tripped up by like nominal promises, meaning like if you put $1, I could win like 200. That gets people really excited and they're willing to pay it. And it's like, maybe it's a 5-way parlay. It's like all it takes is for 5 of these things to hit and I could get so much money. But humans are really bad at calculating odds. So that's usually a losing bet. Not usually, it's
Right.
almost
Yeah.
always a losing bet.
Yeah. People want to play inside table roulette, that's fine. For the record, Nostroa, who was the original author of the Kalshi Parlay tweet that we looked at, responded to this and said, I can correct you on the first two, since the last is a subjective opinion. Traders can take the no side of these, and the house is not Kalshi, as any trader can take the other side. But doesn't that require that there's deep liquidity for every single one of these prop bets?
Yeah, there has to be already someone setting limits, right? In order for you to get to place a bet on a game. Or maybe there doesn't have to be. I don't know. I guess I'm probably going to try this out um, after this episode. That's really interesting. I didn't know that Kalshi offered this.
Yeah, it's brand new. I mean, I think this was announced like last night or this morning. I don't even know if this is live for all users. But I do think if you have deep, high volume, deeply liquid prop bet markets, there is some way to execute on this as a front end user experience where you're just pulling from the existing market
Yeah.
liquidity, right? Um, and I guess you're quoting market prices for each of the bets, but then why couldn't a single one of the bets fill? Like maybe we'll have to dig deeper into exactly how they're doing this, and check in on this in a future episode. An interesting development, though, I really think the takeaway between the Wall Street Journal article, and pointing out the fact that 90% of Kalshi's year to date volume has
Yeah.
been in sports bets, and then combined now with their launch of parlays, it really does position them against traditional sports books like DraftKings, and I expect we will see, um, you know,
This
uh,
is prediction. I think this is prediction markets meme coins in the
this is
context of cryptocurrency. Like, in crypto, there was a lot of like, there's so many fascinating areas within crypto. And a lot of people's introduction to crypto is meme coins and like gambling through that. And there's like some arguments on sides around like, oh, meme coin, you come for the meme coin, stay for like the decentralization. And you and I both know that doesn't always play out that way. So I'm curious with prediction markets if this is the same case, because in my eyes, I see all these sports markets and offerings as like the meme coins version of Polymarket. Is that bad or good? I don't know. I feel like I change my like perspective on it, flip flop every other day.
Yeah, but you're right. It's for people who kind of are looking for, more of that lotto ticket, if you will, experience. I expect we'll see a fiercer response to Kalshi in particular, but to prediction markets from the likes of DraftKings and others who are somewhat heavily regulated, can't act in certain states, and I think have different tax consequences than prediction markets, where okay, now there's a nearly feature complete prediction market alternative that's live in all states, live to users who are over the age of 18 rather than 21, I think, and I believe is treated slightly differently from a tax perspective.
And
We will
Kalshi
follow.
doesn't need Kevin Hart doing all those ads and
Kashi doesn't need
promoting them.
Kevin Hart. Although I think Kashi does have quite a budget
I'm sure.
for their marketing. Certainly, just the way that they've taken over the prediction market side of Twitter. The other thing maybe we can end this on is Adi's daily look at prediction market exchange volume. This has been super helpful. Someday we'll get Adi on the pod. Someday, Adi, if
The
you're
dream.
listening, man. Um, but yesterday's numbers for Monday, September 28th, Kalshi did 110 million. Polymarket did 44 million. And then, of course, there's the long tail of Crypto.com, Novig, SXBet, and ForecastX. Haven't even heard of that one, but maybe in a future episode we dig into some of those other markets. What's striking here, though, I think, is that Kalshi is doing, more than double
Yep.
Polymarket's volume, and it's entirely from sports. Their volume just yesterday, 80% of that volume was sports volume. So certainly a little bit of a differentiation between these two platforms starting to emerge.
And it's probably because of the market making.
And it's probably because they have this, professional contract with SIG to make markets.
Yep.
And presumably because markets, to make a market in sports, I think is easier than to make a market in some of these other kinds of events.
Yeah.
On a lighter topic, we did see a moment of truce. The handshake heard around the world. This was part of the was it the CME testimony? Both the founder of Kalshi and the founder of Polymarket were on the Hill yesterday testifying to some congressional group. I confess I didn't follow this super closely, but it was hotly debated on Twitter whether Shane and Tarek here would or would not shake hands. This did not occur before the panel that they were on. I think it happened just after the
Yeah.
panel. But given how fierce the competition between these two platforms has been, or at least my perception of the
I
company.
call shenanigans. They're insider trading. One of their platforms has a market on will there be a handshake between Shane and Tarek.
Does it? I
No, I
saw
have
this
no idea. I
discussed.
made
It
that
doesn't
up.
actually. Yeah.
I made
Yeah.
that up.
Kind of a fun moment, though. We're impartial here on the Three Markets pod between both Kalshi and Polymarket until one or the other decides to sponsor the pod, folks. At that point, our allegiance will change, but it will be transparent. What do you got, Matt?
Alrighty. Who will win Survivor 49? So just I love reality TV. I love putting my brain on a shelf sometimes after a long day of work and just kind of soaking it all in. Survivor comes out every Wednesday. I'm in 3 different fantasy Survivor leagues, just
Oh, wow.
deep in it. Yeah, it's fun. None of them are like buy-in or anything. I just like Survivor. I got really excited when I first saw this. I saw this like literally like 30 minutes ago before the podcast aired. But there's something really fishy about this. I don't even know why this market exists because this is a reality TV show that has already aired like 4 months ago. There
Really?
already is, yeah. There the production crew, cast, everyone who's in there, like they already know who the winner is. They are some of them are casted for season 50. This is like old news in terms of like real world stuff. So the fact that
Amongst
this market,
insiders, the winner is not public.
the winner is not public, but this is kind of like almost like a trap that's set up of like, I don't know, it feels like a trap. Like I wouldn't put any money into this market at all, knowing that someone on the cast crew, whoever, friends of a friend, like, one of their buddies is like, oh, my friend won Survivor. This can completely be like ruined by insider
Yeah,
information.
there's a real asymmetrical information advantage here to an obvious cohort of insiders. But I almost wonder if that couldn't inform your trade strategy. Like, would we expect, first of all, the volume right now is really low in this market,
Yeah,
but I know you mentioned it's brand new, but wouldn't we expect if an insider was pushing this up, that would just basically be reflected in the odds?
maybe, or like, I mean, if someone fully knows the outcome here, they could also be playing these other, markets or players here by like bumping them up, increasing down. Like, I don't know. Like, I just don't. It's not something that I would want to touch, right? Like, I guess there's one scenario where like if you're an insider and you knew, let's say Savannah was going to be the winner, you can wait for orders to come in, and then people buying no's and then taking the other side for yes, and just kind of keep sitting there, set like a wall within the bid ask here, or you can kind of entice other people to bet within these other markets. I don't actually know the exact strategy there, but I just feel like
There's
if
a
you have
lot
any
of room for market manipulation to someone who
you kind of do whatever you want with
yeah.
this, right? Like, and there's probably all sorts of weird opportunities that come up that we probably don't even think of because we don't have insider information when we're playing these markets.
Yeah. If
Yeah,
this market were on Polymarket, it would actually be interesting because all of their trades are recorded on chain, and you can then kind of audit the entire activity of the order book. Whereas on Kalshi, today you cannot.
hmm
So there is kind of no way to even try to sniff out an insider, pushing the market one way or another.
yeah, and you could actually see some of the comments like mentioning this too. Like, this was filmed 6 months ago. There are probably several hundred people who know who have won this. This is not, this is a really strange market to put up, and I think it's been since season 41, because I think previous seasons they did have like a live airing of like a reveal on stateside of like who won Survivor, and that probably would have been okay, right? I mean, you'd still have the insider information of like maybe some of the like crew on the show who go back and forth from Fiji, which is where they air this.
Right.
But it would have been a lot better. And I actually had a calendar. Oh yeah, this is an example of like an article that says from 41 onwards that there's
Right.
a winner that's already revealed, and then like a calendar of like when the events take place and when the cast gets there, when they leave, etc. One thing I did want to call out though, and this is actually alpha for not this market or not for Survivor, but could be done in any other reality TV show, is there's a community on Reddit called Edgic, which I believe stands for editing and logic. And it's the sabermetrics of Survivor. You can do this with other reality shows though. So what they do is anytime an episode airs, they will manually kind of piece out how much screen time a specific member of the cast got, and there's the hypothesis is that the person who wins in that reality show gets more of a favorable edit.
Interesting.
than other people. So like if you're playing like fantasy and stuff, it's like fun, right? You could be like, oh, like I could analyze like episode 1 just aired last week, episode 2 is airing tomorrow, like who's getting the most screen time, is that indicative of them being a winner? And you could see that in this community they like create like crazy spreadsheets and kind of scenarios that break down who like might be a winner depending on like how much screen time they get.
Has this historically been true for Survivor?
Loosely. I think there was like a couple seasons where it worked out really well, and then some where there was kind of like I think they were like aware of this community and aware of this like analysis, and they want to like kind of keep the surprise. So they've adjusted some of their editing tactics since then.
Right.
But
Right.
yeah, it's fun. It's a fun little like if you're watching reality show or something, and you're like, oh, I wonder who's actually going to win this. It's like maybe the person who's getting the favorable edit, because when you look at you want to be able to capture their whole journey from start to finish, right? Like imagine if you are recording all these other people and there's someone who's unsuspecting within the cast and they end up winning the whole thing, you'd be kicking yourself as producers because you'd be like, oh man, like they had all these other scenes that came up before that maybe we didn't capture or didn't pay as much attention to. Yeah, that's kind of the thought behind this. But
it's a cool thought that this could be an indicator of getting a more favorable edit and potentially certainly at least going lasting longer in the competition, right? Because you do want your audience to get to know those characters more. It's sometimes fairly obvious. I don't watch a ton of Survivor, but it's at least a little bit obvious who is just kind of like a character who never even really finds a storyline.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's fascinating that this market exists when the outcome is known to a select group of people. It just feels like there will have to be this conversation around like insider trading on prediction markets is going to continue to heat up. It's possible there will be some sort of regulation, or it's possible that the platforms themselves will play a larger role, in sort of trying to police that, or possibly embracing it. There is a cohort of people who kind of believe prediction markets should always simply, reflect reality and the likelihood of an event with as much information as possible. That's another route I could see things going. But certainly with a market like this, where you're betting on a cultural event and the outcome is known, I think you would want to police insiders, or these markets just won't get picked up by speculators and traders.
Yeah. I'm actually curious to see. So the season just started, and obviously there's only at least less than $1,000 in volume. But maybe we check back in when the season ends to see like how this played out, because I'm sure anyone who's like heavily participating in this is an insider. I'd be shocked if they weren't. But yeah, and in terms of examples of other reality TV shows that are live, I do love me some Love Island. So that is an example of one that streams every single day. And just you and I have talked about this before. I didn't know if I was willing to share this on the pod, but I got burned in the last Love Island season. Love Island USA, Six Sigma Black Swan event, as you put it, of one of the cast members having not so great social media presence. Couldn't have predicted that. Really thought that I had it in the bag there. I could have predicted that. Yeah, you're right. Next time, I think for the next markets, it's like, okay, having some kind of prior as to what's the likelihood for any of the cast members to have frankly racist social media paths.
Right, and to be removed from the show was the case, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Two people were removed from the show. One at the beginning of the season, and the other one was like actually like seemed to be the favorite, and actually was having a lot of favorable edits, even though that was being streamed like within the day. Like it was a live show for all intents and purposes. And it was very abrupt and shocking when they just like disappeared. Like they kind of just like ignored it. They brushed past it. They made like some comments, but you can tell that it's like, man, I think even the producers thought that like that couple or that person was in that couple was going to make it very far.
Is the outcome of Love Island not known to the insiders in the way it is with Survivor? I guess it's not all shot ahead of time, right?
It would be like within the day.
Interesting.
Or like within a couple of days. So like, yeah, like whoever wins it, like then people would know within the day or maybe a day prior, given the time zones and stuff.
But less exaggerated, certainly, for that show.
Yeah, this is 4 months. This is like already, like this is done. So even if, there's insiders, there's probably also people who are slowly getting this information over time, over that period of 4 months as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
but yeah, that's what I got for my first market.
So have you heard of this guy, Lord Miles?
I've only heard of him through like Twitter or sorry X posts and stuff, but like I don't actually know too much about what's going on. I've seen some clips of him. But yeah,
Yeah,
tell me
I
more. Tell me
confess
more.
I don't know that much about this guy,
Oh
except
my
that
gosh,
he's like
additional context
he's a
galore.
crazy fucking guy. Like I don't know. I also have heard he's problematic, right?
Okay.
I think this guy was like, as an adventure YouTuber, I think is his self-described label. There was a moment where he was like kidnapped by the Taliban or something, and was like thought to be dead by the British government, and then it turned out I think he said he was voluntarily staying with the Taliban. He started selling Taliban merch. He is a problematic guy. He's a bit of a internet troll, if you will, but kind of constantly pushing the bar, if you will, on acceptable internet content. He's kind of like right out of a Black Mirror episode, to be honest
Wow.
with you, with just like the sort of stunts that this guy will do. So this market, though, is
Oh
a
my
good
god.
example of one where this question of conflict of interest comes into play. And this might be the first explicit example of someone who is named in a market breaking out of their own reality and changing their behavior in order to influence the outcome of that market. Or at least that is what's being speculated. I did confess I didn't follow this super closely as it was going down, but this market was stood up, and I believe this was sponsored by a sports betting or crypto betting website called Duel. And the premise of this, will Lord Miles complete his 40-day water fast in the desert, is that Lord Miles went into some desert somewhere in the Middle East. I think it's the hottest desert in the world. And was live streaming himself with solar panels, and purportedly going to attempt a 40-day water fast. Immediately when this market opened, the odds that he would complete it were very, very low. Uh, Odds then climbed. They really topped out at close to 75% likelihood that he would complete the water fast. And then they cratered. And the entire time that this market has existed, there's been controversy around it. For
Hmm.
starters, actually, I'll jump into the sort of timeline of things. But you can already see there's
Oh
multiple
my
clarifications
gosh,
to the
yeah.
Poly market, multiple disputes to the UMA Oracle. There's so much happening around the market that I just went to Grok and asked Grok to give me the rundown. And I think it's given us like a decent timeline here. So without going through all of this, it's like, okay, the market was launched on July 4th.
Hmm.
This is assuming that Grok hasn't made any mistakes. And then there was an initial failure where Lord Miles quit within hours, citing that his equipment was overheating and he wouldn't be able to live stream. He abandoned the desert site, and Polymarket then clarified that they would allow a restart, simply because the project kind of hadn't even gotten off the ground. But of course, no buyers were protesting this.
Yeah.
It's like he already failed within a few hours, and now there's some clarification that there will be a restart.
And do we
Um,
know it's probably? I mean, I know you just pulled this up for Grok, but like, there's also probably a distinction between Polymarket and UMA, like resolvers or like people who are like voting on that, right?
Yeah, Polymarket reserves the right to step in and include clarifications that override the UMA protocol. I believe. I don't want to say that with
Wow.
certainty, and I think this is an instance where they did have to do that. Um, I'll quickly pull up. There was a good
I like
thread.
that. There's a line that says Trader Doma post a detailed thread calling it the dumbest market.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was going to pull up, because I think that thread gave a good amount of context as to what was happening. So we'll just quickly go to Doma's thread. The dumbest market on prediction markets is the Lord Miles promo that I am quoting. Long post ahead. This is, again, a long post. The guy arrived into a legit desert with all sorts of professional equipment, ready for weeks of fasting. He looked miserable and hot. He gave up on day one because, quote, my phone is getting too warm. He ended the stream within hours. He had blatantly failed within hours. No holders expected to be paid based on the abandonment. Abandonment, we would think, equals no wins. Polymarket then clarified that he would be allowed to restart the challenge. Um,
Wow.
Let's see. He then booked himself, and some of this is conjecture, I think, because there's a lot of conjecture and speculation around what exactly has been happening with this market. But Doma writes that he booked himself in a luxury resort in the outskirts, in a resort area near a major highway. showed back up online in said resort with some grains of sand in the distance. If you squint, he indicated that the room itself was not for him. This, I think, was in between his reset, perhaps. He
Wow.
expanded his diet beyond electrolytes to include vitamins and supplements. There's just like so many sort of edge cases where
Yeah.
the resolution, the rules maybe are not clear enough, and there was a decent enough amount of volume in this market that I think it became really, really controversial. The craziest part is still to come, though. Let me jump back to Grok there. So mid to early July, a series of rule bends for which there's disputes, there's rule clarifications from Polymarket. Early scam accusations begin to surface in September. Then September 17th, radio silence begins. Actually, I think right before the radio silence, let me see if I have it. There was this on September 15th. Miles here says in this video clip, somebody from Polymarket has contacted me or a member of my staff offering $30,000 for me to end the fast. And they sent me a birthday cake. I think it's his birthday or something. In this video, he's looking at a birthday cake that we've already broken the fourth wall. Some Polymarket whale is tempting Lord Miles to break the fast and in fact bribing him to break the fast. So this market has already blown wide open into full-on conflict of interest territory, right?
Yeah.
And again, I think is one of the better examples of a market where the central actor in the market is now implicated in the market, and their behavior, even just in making this stream, is now the tail wagging the dog, right? He then beats the cake, says, "Of course I wouldn't do this. I'm not taking the bribe." Blah blah. And then we'll advance to September 18th, or excuse me, September 17th. Sudden radio silence. He announces a 2-hour offline break for electricity maintenance and generator switch, but promises to continue filming. He goes dark, no streams, posts, or proof of life. Mobile data at the resort remains active, undermining the excuse. Odds plummet from 68% yes to 18% yes, as traders panic over the lack of evidence that he's even still in the desert, right? Then there's a controversy around it looked like he had gone active on Discord. Maybe he had, maybe he hadn't. One of the wildest developments comes on September 18th when this Twitter user at Monarch, who I believe, and they state in their own bio to be the owner of Duel,
A
the
destroyer of scammers.
website, that had sponsored the entire market, presumably posted that he is dead and that he had fallen into a coma after unauthorized hospital glucose 4 and was pronounced dead in Riyadh. The market then absolutely crashed. I need to dig up that actual tweet. Let's see if I can find it really quick. Here's the tweet from Monarch.
Oh my gosh.
At this point, this story has gone mainstream enough. I mean, you can even see they got the old Twitter context here. His death is unconfirmed. At this point, we're getting Yahoo Finance news article clarifying that Lord Miles isn't dead. Polymarket scandal takes new turn, and then the latest in this entire saga is, let's see if I can find it, is this here from another X.com user. The story of the scammer Miles is coming to its logical end. He managed to deceive degens out of 100K. We still don't know the exact amount since he used multiple accounts and launched a scam shitcoin. In his farewell message, he announced that he intends to go on a fast again. He basically took to Twitter, Lord Miles did, and clarified that he failed to complete the fast on day 34. But, sorry, this isn't even the craziest bit. See if I can find it here. So the latest news as of this morning, or excuse me, the latest news as of yesterday is that Lord Miles was arrested on terrorism charges in Saudi Arabia. In Saudi Arabia. I won't pretend to have confirmed any part of this story because there's so many twists and turns, right? But Key News EN writes, Lord Miles arrested in Saudi on terrorism charges amid Polymarket betting chaos. The British adventurer and YouTuber has once again drawn attention due to his high-stakes betting event on Polymarket. And at this point, there's rampant accusations that he, was fixing the market, failed the fast intentionally, had built up large, no positions. unconfirmed by me independently, right? But there's like multiple scandals. I mean, someone else said he launched a crypto token while doing this. He had not been heard from in days. Remember, he had gone completely dark. And then, yeah, this news account shares that. Let's see. The market had fluctuated wildly. Polymarket faces scrutiny with users criticizing it for allowing such high risk, even life or death markets. I think that's a fair criticism. And there's
Wow.
not really a ton of clarity as to the arrest. I saw elsewhere, I think that it was speculated that this was like he was like swatted in some way. Um,
That
and
is.
I basically said that he failed the task, but like you could do an entire Vice documentary miniseries on what's going on.
Yeah, and I'll look forward to seeing that because I'm sure there's like probably so much more that we're not even like aware of. And I think that it might call for, we've talked about it before, but we probably should do an episode around um yeah, like value, like speculation of insider trading, the value of like a prediction market itself. Like yeah, like let's say for example this went smoothly, right? And the person like he did or didn't complete the fast, like what does that tell us at the end of the day? You know, it's like it's entertainment, right? Like,
Yes.
but
Yeah. It's actually I think kind of right out of an episode of Black Mirror to be betting on
for
whether or not
sure.
a adventure YouTuber will complete a 40-day fast. I mean, I would be inclined to think that we won't see as many markets like this that name individual actors, especially when it can be so easily manipulated. But also when, yeah, the societal utility, I guess, is questionable.
Yeah. Definitely.
Um, cool. We will have to end it there. Thanks everyone for tuning in. Every week we'll bring you the most interesting news and markets in the prediction market space. We'll be tracking the growth of Polymarket and Kalshi and looking at different strategies. Hopefully, bringing on some Polymarket and Kalshi whales, interviewing them on some of their past trades, things that have gone well, things that haven't. Yada yada yada. We're out of here.
Yeah. If you have any requests on what markets we should look at, or even back to basics, just talking about, you know, what makes up a lot of these things, we're more than happy to do that too.
All right.